teaching and learning is at the heart of everything we do. And we are so appreciative for the educators across Baltimore City who show up every day for our students with commitment, compassion. I also want to take a moment to congratulate this year's Baltimore City School Teacher of the Year, Dr. Otis Eldridge of Hamilton Elementary Middle School, whose work reminds us that it's not always about instruction, it's about inspiration as well. And Dr. Eldridge has certainly connected and uplifted our young people, and we congratulate him and celebrate all of the nominees for Teacher of the Year. With that, we'll move into today's agenda. This is Committee Chair Kalila Slater Harrington. I would like to welcome you all to the May 12th meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee. If you have not done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, please turn your camera off if you are not a board member or the CEO and her staff. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is present. Please identify yourself before speaking for the record. Commissioner Chicas Guzman. Probably just getting out of school. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Likewise, probably getting out of school. One of those great educators we just talked about. Commissioner Scott Woodruff. No, I saw Scott Woodruff.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, I hear you now. Great. And I am present. Before we jump into the agenda, members of the public who would like to provide comment to this committee can do so by written or pre-recorded testimony. Please submit your written testimony or your pre-recorded video the day before the committee meeting. Individuals or groups interested in providing comment to the committee may sign up one of three ways. They can email public.comment@bcps.k12.md.us or call our board office at 443-642-4095. You may also call the board office with any questions that you have about this procedure. Finally, the chat function during our virtual meetings will not be used for gathering feedback or answering questions from the public. If you have follow-up questions or feedback to provide the board, please email schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us and the board office staff will provide a response for you. With that, let's get ready for summer. I'll turn it over to Dr. Swinton Buck.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Harrington. Okay, we are getting the slide up. All right, awesome. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. We are so excited for the awesome opportunities that we have planned for students and our educators this summer. School's out, but the learning will continue, and we're excited about that. So I'm Dr. Swinton Buck, and joining me today will be Dr. DiResta, Dr. Denisova, as well as Executive Director Lori Lynn Sutton, who will share about our summer programming for students and our educators this summer. So we will go through an overview of that, and we'll go to the next slide. We always want to ground in our board strategic priorities before we jump into the overview of our presentation today. Looks like I lost the slide. It might be coming back. All right, it looks like we're having technical difficulties. My apologies. All right, let's bring it back over. Okay. So before we dive into details, we want to ground this presentation in the work that guides everything that we do. Certainly, we have seen these board priorities previously in other presentations, but today we're going to focus mainly on priority 1, 4, and 6. And you'll see these priorities reflected throughout the programming as we share what we have planned for our summer learning for staff and students. Our summer programming doesn't exist in isolation. It is designed to build towards a clear vision of who our students are to become. And so we want to make sure that, through the school year and in our summertime, that students have an opportunity to grow and learn, be creative, innovative thinkers, effective communicators. And that is what we have kept in mind as we build out our summer programming for our students. Also thinking about what we plan for with our educators, particularly our teachers and school leaders, to make sure that they have what they need to make sure that these competencies are living in our programming. Here is our agenda for today. So we'll start with opportunities for our students. Dr. DiResta and Lori Lynn Sutton will share about our opportunities for students. Dr. Dennis Silver will talk about opportunities for educators, all of the summer PL that we are gearing up for. And then I will end with our opportunities for leaders. So next up is Director Lauren DiResta.
Thanks, Dr. Smittenbach. So we are extremely excited that it's almost summer, right? Memorial Day's here. It's officially our launch. And so summer 2026 is gearing up, officially beginning in city schools on June 29th and running through July 30th. We are continuing to maintain that 5-week structure, Monday through Thursday, so offering our city school students 20 days of programming this year. Our budget is roughly around $6 million. And obviously, we do know that with our continued fiscal cliff and decline in funding, this is sitting at approximately about a 25% decrease from where we were for summer 2027. However, with that, we are still able to present some phenomenal opportunities for our students. We have projected roughly 10,350 seats and opportunities available for our students this summer. We do want to call out that several of those seats are provided to us by the Summer Funding Collaborative, in which case they are offering some supports for one of our external partners, as well as providing some transportation to support our Spanish theater camp and ensuring that all of our students are able to attend that. Next slide, please. And so obviously summer planning begins the second summer of 2025 ended. And so we engage in a very strategic, impactful process to ensure that the opportunities that we offer our students are coordinated to their needs, the district priorities, and obviously what is upcoming from Maryland State Department of Education. So one of the first things that we look at is the overarching student attendance, the fiscal impact of each individual program, and also where student demographics are as far as where they reside over the course of this program to assist us in which programs to prioritize. We work with our geomapping team to realistically identify the best placement, looking at all of the data metrics that were imported in our first point. And this year, one of the coordinating factors that also added a layer of complexity was a decline in some fiscal resources underneath our food and nutrition services. And so with that, we focus predominantly in on larger hub sites across the district instead of offering the multitude of smaller school-based sites that historically we have been able to offer. Further alignment with the upcoming Maryland State Department of Education literacy policies and accelerated mathematics policy grounded us in which programs, both external and internal, that we decided to partner with. And further analysis of our survey data from parents, and also recognizing some additional complexities that parents had last summer when we offered half-day programs really forced us to prioritize programs that were able to provide a full day and extended learning as well. And so the list that you see on our screen right here are our district-led internal projects. We have all of these programs occurring at roughly 19 school locations. We have merged Camp Curiosity with our Judy centers to be able to maintain that structure. We have expanded our access to algebra seats in preparation for the accelerated math proactivity, and our data really spoke highly of that program last year. We have also expanded our fine arts camp seats as well for alignment with the summer funding collab and a focus in on some of our older students. Next slide, please. And so this particular slide highlights 4 of the external partnerships that we are that we are funding. However, further alignment with the Summer Funding Collab and obviously what Parks and Recs offers, there are assorted other opportunities in which we are gathering that information now to be where schools are also offering their own individual programs with external partners. So from our own funding structure, we have 13 different school locations, 10 of which are Sala Arts for Learning, in which this year we are very excited to be able to merge with our ESY, which Lori Lynn will speak about further down. This is also our first ever Orc Kids, which is a summer orchestra, and we are incredibly excited to be able to offer that. That's brand new in alignment with our fine arts content. We are also continuing our partnership with Ailey Dance Camp and Ingenuity Project, which we have historically maintained over the past several years. And so while our summer programming opportunities, we cannot forget district credit recovery. This year, we have some very exciting new original credit offerings for rising 9th grade students through 12th grade. So while historically we have offered credit recovery to support our young people with the opportunity to retake courses in which they were not successful and did not earn credit, this year we are offering district-wide the opportunity for rising 9th graders to take one high school level credit, so that way they are able to enter into high school with potentially 1 credit already underneath their belt, further accelerating them and really aligning them from that ecosystem of having them further opportunities down the line to engage in dual enrollment or AP classes. We have 3 in-person district sites, 1 being a late start site and maintaining our district virtual site. And for several of our schools, roughly around 10 that we know of thus far, we are very excited to be able to continue to offer our CSI schools with their own individual school site-based programs. And so the data that you see on this screen here really highlights the importance of our credit recovery programs, both summer as well as that which is offered during the course of the school year. And so what this particular graph reflects is that amongst our multitude of summer and school year credit recovery offerings, 49.8% of city school students that graduated in 2025 participated in credit recovery over their 4-year cohort trajectory. So it really speaks to the importance that this program has with maintaining city schools graduation rates. And with that, I will lead it over to Lori Lynn.
So thank you, Dr. DeRosa-Stasio, and good afternoon. I am Lori Lynn Sutton. I'm the Executive Director for Special Education. I do want to remind us what ESY stands for. So ESY is Extended School Year, and it refers to special education services delivered outside of our traditional school year for students whose IEP teams determine that continued instruction and support are necessary for students to sustain progress. So I do want to reflect a little bit on summer 2025, because that's going to lead us into the redesign that you'll see on the next slide. So in summer 2025, extended school year services were actually offered across a wide network of sites, including 21 traditional ESY sites. We had 4 Sala ESY sites and 4 separate public day school sites serving almost 1,800 students. And while this model really provided broad access, it also required us to spread our resources, our staffing, our leadership, and also operational supports across a large number of locations, which really did create challenges in really maintaining consistency in the experiences our students had, as well as providing really strong on-site support. So part of the work this year was to really look back at ESY from summer 2025. And when we looked, we didn't just look at the number of sites, but we also wanted to make sure that we would position ourselves to improve the quality, stability of staffing, but most importantly, the student engagement and progress our students were making. So for 2026, this is a reflection of the redesign that we made. So what we're really excited about for 2026 is that we have been able to expand our partnership with Summer Arts for Learning Academies for grades pre-K to 8, which Dr. DeRessa mentioned earlier. This really is going to support more engaging and inclusive summer experiences by really connecting our students with stronger enrichment opportunities. We began this 2 summers ago. We started with 2 sites. Last year, as I just shared, we had 4 SALA sites. And the feedback from families and most importantly, students and teachers was that they found that the students were really engaged, not only in mathematics and literacy instruction, but also that arts integration piece, which is the key to SALA. So we decided to expand our partnership for this year. So every student in grades pre-K to 8 in ESY this summer will have that experience, and we're really excited about that. With that, we are also co-locating our ESY sites with our traditional summer programs to offer more opportunities for inclusion across the programs. And we're hoping really that this shift is going to provide more concrete resources and strengthen the quality and consistency of programming rather than stretching the support too thin across many locations. So we're really excited. We're organizing across 4 quadrants of the city. And while we might have a reduction in the number of sites, we are still able to serve all students that are identified for ESY services. So I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. Denisova to talk about opportunities for educators.
Thanks, Lori Lynn. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Denisova, Director of Professional Learning, excited to share with you our plans for the summer. You know that summer is a really busy season for us as we prepare 2 CEO Summer Institutes. This year, we will be scheduling them for June 17, 18, 22nd, 23rd, and then repeating again in July during the week of July 20th. A few years ago, we made an agreement that all our summer courses will be meeting in person. Therefore, we partner with principals of a long list of schools that are in front of you on the screen. Really grateful for the school leaders for allowing us to use their classrooms. We did include the QR code for you on the slide if you were curious about what particular courses are being offered under the umbrella of the Summer Institutes. But if you can really look at the menu, you will see that you can put them into categories. There are courses on content and pedagogy, as well as courses to support our diverse learners. Very excited that 3 years ago, we started a practice of getting summer courses approved for professional development points, or PDPs. These are credits that licensed educators can earn towards their license renewal, which significantly reduces out-of-pocket expenses. So again, this summer, everything on the catalog for the Summer Institutes is approved for PDPs, and we encourage our educators to take these courses, complete all the assignments so they can earn those credits. You know that we numerous times in the past talked about the design and facilitation of adult learning course, which we piloted 3 years ago, and now we have trained almost over 1,000 educators in strategic design of adult learning. So all of our courses are facilitated by individuals who've gone through this course, and also design of this courses is largely based on the principles of adult learning. I also wanted to take a minute to recognize our Train the Trainer Summer Institutes. So we have teacher leaders working in schools and whose responsibility is to lift practice of early career teachers and all teachers in the schools. So on June 17th and 18th, we're bringing together school-based early career teacher mentors for a two-day institute. And this summer, this group will be focusing on what it takes to become an effective mentor, how to actively listen, what it means to have a strategic mentoring conversation, and aligning mentoring support to instructional framework. In July, we have our math and literacy coaches and leads getting together. Their training will be happening during the weeks of July 20th and July 27th. And these leaders will be focused on research-based coaching practices designed to support implementation of high-quality instructional materials and MTSS practices in mathematics and in literacy. Now, this is my favorite slide of my portion of the presentation. Everybody loves New Educator Summer Institute, or NESI, which is our district orientation program for our first-year teachers. This year, we will be offering NESI at Digital Harbor High School. Really grateful to the principal for hosting us this summer. We are opening the doors of NESI to school counselors and related service providers. And we are also planning for a little bit longer program. The program will begin last week of July, and then the Institute itself will span August 3rd through August 11th. We're expecting roughly about 350 to 400 participants. And we're going to be deeply going into making sense of high quality instructional materials that are in schools and lesson planning for the initial weeks of the school year. That we're constantly making changes to our planning of NESI or NESI. So what's in front of you are the 3 improvement areas that have been identified based on feedback we collected from previous participants and also facilitators. We moved the school visit day, which is the opportunity for first-year teachers to go to their schools and meet their principal, meet their coach, meet their mentor, and take a look at their classroom. Traditionally, this was a culminating event of the program, but this year we're moving it to day 2 to provide more contextual context for these teachers as they start planning for the year ahead. We're also trying to maximize time for intentional collaborative planning and application. We know that feedback tells us that new teachers are really focused on being ready for their students, and therefore we're maximizing time that they spend with experienced teachers planning their lessons for the first month of instruction. And also an exciting change or addition to our program. On the last day of the program, we have Baltimore City neighborhood bus tours that will be designed in collaboration with Baltimore historians and history teachers. We are designing bus tours for everyone who is interested, for those who are international hires or have little context to the history of Baltimore City, so that they can go deeply into the history of a variety of neighborhoods and how that history is now seen in the youth, in the young people that they will be working with. With that, I am passing the baton back to Dr. Swinbuck to talk about opportunities for leaders.
Thank you so much, Dr. Denisova. So yes, I am back again, and I'm going to share about our leadership opportunities. So we are so excited for our June Leadership Institute that begins on Monday, June 22nd. This is a collaborative effort between the Schools and Academics Office, and it's at the start of the summer so that we're not pulling principals throughout the summer. They get all of their key learning at the start of the summer so that they can plan with their teams throughout so that we can have a strong start to the school year. So our June Leadership Institute is for all of our principals, our resident principals and assistant principals. So principals will be there with their leadership teams to plan, and this will be hosted at Patterson High School. So shout out to Patterson for allowing us to host our June leadership. We have an array of offerings across schools, academics, as well as HC, legal, operations. There are several other offices that will be providing some required sessions. And then we have a catalog of choice sessions based on different priority or special projects that we have across the district. And so we are excited about bringing our school leaders into this space. We will make sure that our required sessions are aligned to our key priorities, such as MTSS, our cycles. We are very excited about this opportunity because it gives the school leaders a time to step back to get new key learning and then plan with their team throughout the summer. Next slide. This just talks about the framing for our June leadership and the opportunities that school leaders will have. And so I talked about our required sessions that are aligned to key priorities and district goals. And then we have choice sessions that are aligned to interests as well as special projects that school leaders might be connected to. We will also make sure that we have CLN time within our daily schedule so that they have time with their CLN colleagues to debrief and talk about implementation across their schools. And then we also added reflection and recharge. So this is a time to give folks a break in between the learning. We understand, our students experience cognitive load, and then we also understand for our adults, they need time to reflect and recharge and get ready for their other sessions. And so we've embedded that intentionally to also balance how folks are digesting the information that they're getting during this time. Again, this is 4 days in June, and this is about the only time that we have all of our school leaders and assistant principals together, all of our principals and APs together. And so it's really important that we get them that key learning, but also create space so that they can reflect and recharge. Next slide. We are also excited about our new administrator summer orientation that begins on July 6th. This is also a 4-day institute for our new administrators. This is new assistant principals, new principals, and resident principals. This is hosted by our equity team, and this is really an opportunity for our new school leaders to set a foundation of key learning, things that you need to know on day one, really build their toolbox as they build their entry plan for their new school community. So we are excited about this space for new administrators to connect and collaborate with the equity team, the pipeline team, our coaches who can really set them up for a strong start to the school year. That is all for our summer learning update. We will now open it up or give it back to the Commissioner for any questions.
Thank you so much. That was quite the robust presentation. Several things that I liked and are looking forward to talking about. Before I do, I want to acknowledge if any other commissioners have joined us. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, are you with us? Not quite yet. Okay. Commissioner Chicas Guzman, are you here? Not quite yet either. Okay. Commissioner Scott Woodruff, do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you. I agree, Commissioner Slater-Harrington. This was a robust presentation. So thank you to the team for sharing everything that is happening or upcoming this summer. I have 2 questions. My first question is for Lori Lynn. Can you mentioned that there was a consolidation to the 4 quadrants of the city, but that the same number of students who are identified will be able to attend. Can you talk about, how families are engaged and notified and able to take advantage of the programs? And I know sometimes that happens during IEP meetings. If for some reason a student's IEP meeting due to a transition or something like that is happening over the summer, how are we getting that information to families? And
So,
well,
go ahead,
and I
sorry.
think another question is roughly what percentage of students who are identified are you expecting families to take advantage of it? I understand some families that works for them, others family don't, but is there a target or metric that we're looking for?
So, as far as so your first question was around the quadrants in the city?
No, really the first question was how for students who, you mentioned that there are enough seats for students who are identified.
Yes.
How are families engaged, notified, and just like able to take advantage of ESY once they're identified?
Right. So what happens is there is a meeting, right, to a determination meeting for students to determine whether or not the extended school year is appropriate for them to maintain their skills and not regress during the summer. Once that happens, the families are sent a letter that can be returned to say that, yes, they opt into ESY. However, in full transparency, if the letter is not returned and they have been determined as for receiving ESY services, they're welcome to attend. Students are then, we use what's called a geomapping process. So we look at where the student resides and where our sites are. So we have 10 sites across the city. And we will assign students to the sites that are closest to their home. So the location that is closest to their home. And that letter then goes home to families that will notify them of the site that their child would attend for the summer.
Great, thank you. And then roughly like what percentage of families take advantage historically? Are there specific targets for the summer?
Right. So last summer we had about 1,800 students. Right now we're on track to serve that many as well. Now that does include our 4 separate public day schools as well as our students for high school. So we have 2 high school sites this year as well. Those sites we work in collaboration with the summer learning team so that students that are attending ESY that may need credit recovery have the option to also earn credits over the summer. So again, we're trying to really be thoughtful about co-locating our sites. But we do expect probably out of the, 1,800 to 2,000 students that, are identified for ESY services. I would say probably about 70% actually take advantage of the 20 days during the summer. Okay. And we do see some families that come in and out, that they may do a week and then they have a vacation and then they come back, but it is open for them for the entirety of the 20 days.
Okay.
Well, question, I know Commissioner, you have more questions, but since we're on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Look, hi, Lori Lynn.
Hi.
So, we're serving 1,800 to 2,000 now. Is that consistent with what we've served in previous year? I remember there was a 25% reduction in budget, but are you saying why has stayed pretty consistent?
It has, and we need to be able to provide, we're legally responsible to provide the services. So we have to develop the budget in order to be able to support all students that have been determined for ESY services. Yes. So
I want to ask about, since you mentioned the high school, I know credit recovery, but are we spending, or any of the ESY programs doing transition support? So if they're transitioning from middle to high or elementary to middle, to like them going to a new environment and adjusting?
So that's a good question. So during the summer, we don't generally, so for our pre-K to 8 students, they would be attending the SALA. That is not something that we've talked about as part of the plan for the summer, but I do think that is something that we should consider. And we do still have time. We have a couple months, almost 2 months before ESY starts, but there is transition planning that does happen at the high school level. And again, our middle school students are in that pre-K to 8 in that SALA ESY partnership. But I appreciate you raising that.
Yeah, it was selfish, but
It's okay to be selfish. It's okay.
love to see, Lori Lynn, you and I have talked a lot about making sure that our young people in special ed have opportunities beyond what is that are enhanced and that are enrichment and not just what we are required to provide. So I love to hear that we're combining sites and having those sites in traditional or regular ed settings so that there can be a cross benefit. Yeah.
The other thing we're really excited about with this too that I did not mention is we're actually doing open houses for our students so that they can actually visit the site before they're actually starting the summer program. So again, that's in partnership with our Arts for Learning partners for SALA, where students and families will be able to do like a meet and greet and see the program before or see the site before program starts, because that's really important for some of our students, especially some of our students that have difficulty with transition and change. We're really trying to be intentional to make them as comfortable and also engaged in our 20 days for summer. So we're really excited about that.
Love it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Commissioner, I'm sorry I interrupted. You want to go ahead with your questions?
Yes, thank you. Those were all really good questions. And thank you, Lori Lynn, for the breakdown and explanation. That was really helpful. Let's see. My next question was, I'm not sure who can take this question, but I want to say, so Dr. Swinton-Buck, you mentioned emphasis and priority around like having just like some time for school leaders to synthesize and understand the information that they are getting, because it can be information overload. I may have missed it, but in the other categories for teachers and new teachers and other leaders, are those teams following like a similar structure or have embedded some of that same strategy in their work? And then yes, I think that's my only question.
Yes, great question. So all of our facilitators for PL for either leadership or with teachers have training in our adult learning theory. So it's called DFAL. You'll hear that. And I believe Dr. Denisova mentioned that earlier. And the key principles in that is recognizing the science of learning and the cognitive load as you're learning new information and how you're stamping that learning, but also giving folks time to digest and plan. So all of our facilitators have gone through DFAL, both for CAO and our Leadership Institute, because that is a priority. And we want people to be driven by the research as they build their professional learning and also execute and implement the professional learning.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Commissioner, is that all of your questions?
I think it is. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Swinton-Buck, I had a question about, so we were able to, even with the reduced funding, serve about 10,350 students. And that's inclusive of what sites that the, I was a part of this group, the summer grant makers are doing, yes.
Summer Collab.
Yeah, the summer funding collaborative. Thank you. Is that inclusive of YouthWorks? How are we accounting for YouthWorks and what we've seen presented here today?
Yep, I will actually call Dr. DeRosa to give more details because she works closely with the YouthWorks programming.
So regarding YouthWorks, we know that 250 of our students that signed up for YouthWorks will be eligible to participate in credit recovery. We have assorted other sites, such as our Fine Arts Camp, our AP Academy, that themselves submitted an application to be a YouthWorks site. So any student that applied both to YouthWorks and then also the particular program itself will be able to be YouthWorks at that location. That's not a specific number that we know at that time. Registration for YouthWorks as far as the actual site placement won't occur until around mid-May.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. It's around how we coordinate, because I know so many of our students are participating. And I love to see when, even with our academic programming, where students can be paid for participation, because we need them to be learning and engaged, but I know there's a real need around earning as well. So thank you for that. I had an additional question and it just escaped me. Well, seeing as though Commissioner Scott Woodruff and I have asked all of our questions, I just want to thank the team for such a robust presentation. If we have any follow-up questions, we'll send them through staff. Thanks again. With that, I think our agenda, I think we're going to move on to the procurement, or excuse me, the compliance.
Oh, did you call for us? Sorry, my mic went out for a second.
Oh, no.
No.
Okay. It's the compliance report.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Yes, Angela, we're ready for the compliance report.
Okay, I'm here. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize my audio had shut off for a second. So I was listening and then it kind of went out.
Anything.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Commissioner Harrington and Commissioner Scott Woodruff and other commissioners going to be present. So I'm Angela Alvarez, Senior Executive Director of ONI. We're going to be presenting the Charter and Operator-Led Schools Policy IHBJ compliance presentation. And I'm going to invite Kendra Banks from my team, who will walk us through the first part, and I'll come back at the second part.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Harrington. Good afternoon, Commissioner Woodruff. Is the presentation on the main screen? Because I don't know why I'm not seeing it on the main screen.
Yeah. Can someone put it on the main? I'm sharing it. Okay, boom. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, so today we will be presenting the IHBJ compliance report, and this presentation provides an overview of the district's operator-led school portfolio, including charter, contract, and transformation schools, where we will highlight key findings related to student demographics, academic performance, attendance, fiscal accountability, facilities, and staffing trends. The work of our charter and operator-led school aligns directly with all of the board's strategic priorities, and we will be highlighting priority 6. Operator-led schools contribute to expanding high-quality educational options and innovative programming throughout Baltimore City, and these schools support district priorities related to equity, family engagement, instructional quality, staffing, and facility access. What is IHBJ compliance? The board policy governs the district's oversight of charter and operator-led schools. The policy requires an annual compliance report focused on 3 primary areas: student performance, fiscal accountability, and additional operational requirements. And our operator-led schools are public schools managed by outside organizations approved by the board to meet district needs, provide innovative instructional models, improve outcomes, and manage daily school operations. And the accountability process includes both quantitative and qualitative review measures. And our schools are evaluated within the context of their mission, student demographics, and enrollment structures, as well as contractual obligations approved by the board. City School operator-led portfolio includes our charter, contract, and transformation schools. And our charter schools include both wholly new charter schools serving students citywide and conversion charter schools that continue serving neighborhood attendance zones. Our contract schools provide specialized admission models tied to unique programmatic needs and student populations. And our transformation schools primarily focus on secondary education models connected to college readiness, career pathways, and alternative educational programming. And it is also important to recognize that the differences in our admission structures, instructional focus, and geography can influence enrollment patterns, student demographics, and outcomes across school types. Where are our schools located? Oh. Did we skip one? Okay. City schools continue to serve as the largest charter school authorizer in Maryland. And currently the school district is home to 31 charter schools, representing nearly 2/3 of the charter schools across the state. This map demonstrates the geographic distribution of charter schools throughout Baltimore City. Our conversion schools are not identified in this map because they continue serving neighborhood attendance areas, but school location can significantly influence student enrollment patterns, transportation access, community demand, and neighborhood demographics. And as a result, many of the conversion charter schools reflect the demographics of the communities in which they serve.
And they are on the map. They have the square shape. So the circles are the wholly new charters. The square shapes are conversion charters. And we see the same kind of diversity with our 4 other operator-led schools.
Approximately 22% of district students attended operator-led schools during the school year of 24-25, with roughly 19% enrolled in charter schools specifically. Our traditional schools served higher proportions of Latino students than charter schools overall. However, our conversion charter schools serve Latino students populations at levels closer to traditional schools, particularly in the Southeast area of Baltimore. Charter schools also serve slightly higher percentages of students with disabilities. Yet traditional schools serve significantly more students requiring intensive supports in LREC settings. Student demographics across schools are influenced by several factors, including the geography and the school design and the programming. Go to the next slide. So in school year 24-25, operator-led schools serve 16,565 students out of approximately 76,712 district students overall. And this reflects a slight increase from the prior school year. Our charter school students represented approximately 18.5% of total district enrollment, with wholly new charter schools continuing to represent the largest portion of operator-led enrollment. Enrollment patterns continue to stabilize following pandemic era declines, and family choice trends, demographic shifts, and school openings or closures can all influence enrollment levels over time. Who are our students? Charter and traditional schools serve similar populations. Traditional schools and charter schools continue to serve similar proportions of economically disadvantaged students. Other operator-led schools, including contract and transformation schools, serve higher concentrations of economically disadvantaged students. And it's important to note that in the beginning of school year 22-23, Medicaid participation was added to Maryland's direct certification definition for economic disadvantage, and the inclusion of this significantly increased the direct certification rates statewide and particularly impacted schools and student populations that may have historically experienced undercounting, including some multilingual learners and mixed status families. Latino student populations. Traditional schools serve nearly twice the proportion of Latino student pop compared to charter schools overall. Our conversion charter schools continue to serve larger Latino student populations than wholly new charter schools, reflecting geographic enrollment patterns and neighborhood demographics across the district. Many of our conversion charter schools are located in Southeast Baltimore, where larger Latino communities reside. And language access, school programming, and transportation availability may also influence enrollment patterns across across the district. And now I will pass it over to you, Angela, for slides.
Okay, yep. And so as Kendra shared earlier, one of the things we look at is the LRC, like or in higher LREs. And so we see our traditional schools continue to serve a higher population of students with disabilities that require more support than their operator school peers. I think all of the school types, when we go back to 1920, have seen a reduction in the number of students needing that higher level of support. And so you can see that this is just a way for you to see that in detail over time. We're going to now turn to like how schools are performing on state assessments and other areas. And so it's important to note when we're looking at state assessments, there's a very strong correlation between the relative wealth of the student pop and the performance. And so we do a comparison based on relative economic disadvantage groups. So you'll see that comparison as we get into the data over time. Average performance for elementary and middle grades on MCAT for students across types continues to be in the developing learner space. And you'll see that our charter and other operator schools are distributed across the performance in similar patterns as traditional schools. And so let's take a closer look at that. So here you can see we've highlighted and there's examples for each of the economic disadvantage groups within the appendices. But for the purpose of this presentation here in time, we've highlighted the 80 to 100% economic disadvantage group because this is where the majority of our schools fall for grades 3 through 5. And so the schools that are gray are your traditional schools, purple is your wholly new charters, orange are your conversion, and then blue is our other operator schools, which again is a very small number of schools. With this school, so math performance is along the y-axis here, and English language arts performance is along the x-axis. So schools that are performing above these lines in the middle are the district average. So this is the district average for math performance. This one is the district average for ELA performance. So schools that fall into this category are performing higher than the district average on both of those assessments. Schools that are above the line, so over here, these schools are performing above for math, but are below the average for reading. And these schools are above average for reading, but below the average for math. Let me give you a second just so you can kind of take note of the school of those the schools who fall into those categories. So I'm just going to pause for a quick second and just say a lot. You have Wolf Street, Clay Hill, Empowerment, and KIPP for elementary grades being in the upper right hand quadrant. With Henderson Hopkins almost there. This is a similar table with the same kind of breakdowns for middle grades performance. And so in this right-hand corner where schools are performing again above the average in both ELA and math, you can see Clay Hill here, a really strong math performance being at the top above of other schools with similar poverty. And then you see Empowerment here being ahead of schools in terms of ELA performance. Henderson Hopkins is kind of in the kind of same place where they're kind of right on the average for math, but above average in ELA. And then you have KIPP and City Springs here above average for math. So just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. For middle grade performance, when you see the distribution throughout the areas, and you kind of see it lining up along with economic disadvantage. I'm going to now focus on secondary students. So as a district, we, and this again is looking at the last year we had complete data. So all of this is about the data from 2025. So we had 22,000 secondary students in that year. Most of our operator schools are K-8s or K-5s. So when we're looking at secondary students, it's a much smaller percentage. So about 15% of our secondary students, or 3,400 students, are attend an operator-led school. Charters represent 9%, which is just 5 schools that fall into that category. Then we have the two transformation schools that serve students in this grade band, and then we have our single contract school to Bard, which is a early college high school. So the majority of students, the other thing, so just as we go through this is a much smaller size. So I think that's a thing to just note. So we're talking about a much smaller population of students. And so you got to take some of this comparative data with a grain of salt, given that size. Additionally, when we're talking about traditional schools where most of our secondary students are, we're talking about 81% there. The traditional sector is split where about a third of our students are in selective schools. And then another half of those students are in non-selective high schools. And so understanding the demographics before we get into the data also plays in a role in terms of how you understand the data. And so the key kind of takeaways that you should be able to see from this slide is that our non-selective schools are serving students that need higher levels of services just based on need. So you see our multilingual learners, for example, being a higher percent in that non-selective category, right? Above 19%. For all the other categories, we have to suppress the percent. And then you see there's a significant portion, over 40%, are overage students. So that I think that's another kind of thing before we get into the data point. And then with students with disabilities, where charters serve a higher percentage, the majority of students in charter schools are in LRE A or B. And so when we're looking at non-selective, this 18%, there's a higher percentage of those students that are in that higher restrictive area of LRE C. So just wanted to make sure that we're understanding that as we get into the data. In terms of grad rates, we're seeing improvement across school types. Obviously, our traditional selective schools are going to have the higher graduation rates, but we see charters, for our 5 charter schools, we see really good, solid graduation data over time, with an increase from the data from 24 to 25. It's, been a little bit up and down, but the trend is an improvement over time. And then our other operators at 84%. For a non-selective, that's serving more of our overage, more of our MLs, students that need higher special education support, we see their average at 67% in school year 24-25, but that's a steady increase over the last 5 years in that group. In terms of NCAP performance, so similar to the elementary and middle grades data, so we have Algebra 1 again on the y-axis, ELA 10 on the x-axis. This again is the group where we see the majority of our secondary schools is in this 80 to 100% demographic group. And so again, schools that fall into this category are above average in both the Algebra 1 and English 10. And so we see Coppin is here just above the average in math and above the average for ELA 10. we see Bliss starting to cross the line. They're just on average, they're kind of right at the average for ELA 10 performance. And then the rest of our operators are below average in both of those assessments with other schools that are in a similar pattern. So you can see there's not as many schools yet in this area. So we're continuing to monitor improvement over time. The other things we looked at are also about attendance. And so we can see chronic absenteeism has decreased across schools over the last 5 years. Again, we're looking at data from 21-22 through 24-25. Our biggest places of decrease have been in our middle grades, where we see our other operator schools, which again is a handful of schools, but still very significant 23 point improvement over that 5-year period. And you see our wholly new charters and traditional schools also having double-digit improvement of improving by 18%, improving by 12%. But there's improvement, as you can see, in each of the grade bands. And so this has been an area of focus for us across the district, across school types. And so just important thing to note. And you can see that our other operator schools, are also kind of outpacing others like similar schools in grade 9-12, but people are close in terms of improvement over the last 5 years. In terms of fiscal accountability and audit controls, so we reviewed those on an annual basis, but schools go through a really deep, comprehensive review during renewal process. So we've been reporting on the number of schools who meet expectations, meaning they're meeting the standard. That's the highest rating a school can get in that deep review of their financials. Developing, means there are things that are different than we expect. It could indicate challenges. It sometimes indicate that schools are taking on debt for improvement. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. We're looking at kind of cash liquidity a lot of times. In this cash on hand, we're looking at schools have 60 days cash on hand on average over multiple years. And so we are, concerned when schools are not meeting expectations, they're falling below that. In our recent review process, we've had 18 schools reviewed, 16 of them met the expectations, and we had 2 schools not meet expectations. The other thing we look at in fiscal accountability is just grants and how grants have shaped that up from 23-24 to 24-25. And so you can see, while there's been some decreases in some grants, like Title I was a smaller grant, as well as Struggling Learners was a smaller grant in 24-25. The overall trend is that there's been more grant dollars, 8 million more grant dollars that have been directly allocated out to charter and operator schools during that time. And we see schools, for the most part, spending their resources appropriately. The other thing we want to report on our schools and our facilities, with a particular focus on charters in our district facilities, because there's different requirements and relationship with them when it comes to school facilities. And so before I get into the details about charters, just to kind of set the understanding, one thing I think sometimes people don't realize is that facilities costs are real for all schools. Traditional schools, the way they're funded, and transformation schools, they're in buildings, these things are deducted off of the top before they get the per pupil allocation. So school leaders and district staff may not be aware that they're paying these same costs, but they are. It's deducted before they get their allocations as services that go to schools. For charter and contract schools, we don't make those deductions. And so they're allocated all of their per pupil resources. And if they are renting as cash, and if they're renting from city schools, then they pay rent to the district quarterly on those resources. In school year 24-25, we had 13 or just under half of our charters housed in district facilities. those schools are prioritized in the same way as any other school that's housed in a district facility when it comes to capital improvement funds, which is based on need. The rent that we charge, just to be really clear, is not really like a true rental rate. It's not based on like any kind of value. It's the average cost of us being able to maintain the buildings for schools, and the average cost of utilities. And for utilities, it gets trued up in third quarter based on the actual usage from the year prior. So schools end up paying in the standard rental agreement their actual utilities cost. So there's no kind of value. It's not like the standard rent that you may pay or other people may pay in other places. Again, this is actual services that are about maintaining the building and making sure, we have lights on, the water bill is paid. With that, we have schools in different categories. So schools that have, the top table shows schools that are paying the majority of the facilities costs that are associated with their building based on their leases. We have 3 schools, so lease terms can change over time. So we've had some schools that were in older leases where the escalation was slower based on the older terms. And so there's Connections and Wolf, for example, are schools of that thing. So it ends up with them paying between 50 to 80%. With Hampstead Hill, the board approved. They did a major renovation project, and so our lease allows schools to apply for offsets capped at 20% if they're renovating space. And so you guys remember that Hampstead Hill renovated their gym space recently, which is a benefit for students. And so it puts them slightly under because of the combination of that offset plus the age of their lease that puts them a little bit below the what would be an 80% cutoff for the FY25 rental rate. But then we have other schools that get significant rental reductions. So that means the district or traditional schools are helping to pay for the cost of these facilities because they were in special leases. And so these are the schools, Bliss, City Neighbors, Hamilton, City Neighbors High School, that are in special leases where they're paying less, 50% or less of the true cost of like the maintenance and utilities for their school buildings. And then we have 2 schools that are in a special lease where they're assuming the maintenance costs and they only pay the utilities. That's Kip Harmony and Bel Air. So they're a little different than the ones that are above it because they have a special arrangement where they're assuming directly and are managing the cost of any kind of maintenance. All of these schools are still like part of, again, the capital improvement funds for anything that meets the state's definition of what qualifies as capital improvement, including being costing over $200,000 for that needed replacement. Then we have about half of our schools that either rent from a private entity or they themselves own the building. So this is showing that list of schools. I just want to give you a moment just so you can take note of them. And just one thing, because I know this has been of interest to the board and it's probably of interest to members of the public. Before a school can locate in a private facility, it goes through a board approval process. Our staff and our operations department, our facilities team, reviews any kind of renovations and any kind of requirements that are needed to make sure they're meeting those requirements before it goes to approval from the board. Like we will often have a year-long meeting. Sometimes it takes 2 years around gaining that approval. I know there were some questions the board had around like Clay Hill, for example. And so they initially had gotten temporary approval for their facility to make sure that it can meet the needs. They're in, I think, phase 3 of finishing a renovation projects. There were requirements, again, to meet those needs. And these schools also have to get state approval for their facilities projects. And the requirements of this have changed over time. So schools that have been in a building for a long time, maybe in some more non-typical spaces than what might be approved today, just given, you're going back a number of years in time. So I just wanted to sort of name that transparently. And then we have 3 schools that are in public buildings, but they're not buildings owned by or controlled by city schools. They're in buildings controlled by the city of Baltimore. And so that's Empowerment, Creative City, and Baltimore International Academy West. The city of Baltimore, similar to city schools, doesn't really charge anything. In fact, they charge virtually nothing, like $1 or it's a very nominal thing. And for that, then the school is assuming all of the costs, all of the maintaining of the building and all of the, paying their utilities and making sure that the building, meets the needs. And so we've been working to make sure that schools, as we've gotten new requirements, like for example, we have new state requirements on making sure that all schools have air conditioning. We've been making sure that these schools are also meeting those requirements. And so this brings us to the end. There's more data and dependencies, and then there's a full report that will come to the board at the end of June. We're going to pause here to see if there are questions, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much for this fantastic presentation. Commissioner Scott Woodruff, do you have any questions? I actually do not.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the presentation. I think I want to sit with the data. It was a lot to synthesize, so thank you for walking us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
We could always follow up with questions afterwards, Commissioner. Awesome. All righty. Then let's move on to our procurement. I believe we have 2 procurement items.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Kamenecki, and I am with the procurement department. And we just have 2 items today for teaching and learning. The first is section 12.1. The chief academic officer requests the board's approval of a contract with the Library Corporation to purchase a library circulation system. The estimated annual contract amount is $180,000, and the contract term is May 20.